The sun had just risen over the tall city skyline, bathing the glass towers in a golden glow. Inside one of those towers, a group of executives was preparing for a major meeting that could decide the company's future. Everything had to be perfect: the lights, the presentation, even the elevator that brought guests up to the top floor. But as fate would have it, the elevator stopped working just before the meeting began. Panic spread through the office. The CEO was furious. The meeting was scheduled in 20 minutes, and their most important investor was stuck downstairs. The receptionist quickly called for maintenance. Within 15 minutes, the elevator repairman arrived, a quiet man in his early 30s, wearing a blue uniform and carrying a worn-out toolbox. His name was Marco, a single father who had been working day and night to raise his little daughter after his wife passed away 2 years ago. He entered the office politely, nodded to everyone, and got straight to work. The executives barely looked at him. To them, he was just another worker. But the woman in the white suit, Elena, the head of operations, couldn't help but notice something different about him. The calmness in his eyes, the way he treated the broken elevator like an old friend. There was patience, precision, and care in every movement. As Marco opened the control panel, sparks flickered. He took a small tool and began checking each wire, humming softly under his breath. His humming caught Elena's attention. It was an Italian melody, something gentle, something old. One of the executives frowned and said, "Can you hurry up? We don't have all day." Marco looked up, nodded silently, and continued his work. But Elena walked closer, watching the small details: his steady hands, his soft concentration, the way he whispered to himself in Italian. Then something unexpected happened. One of the investors from Italy, who had just entered the office, overheard Marco speaking. His eyes widened. He turned to Elena and said, "That man is speaking perfect Florentine Italian." Everyone froze. Elena asked, "You understand him?" The investor nodded. "Yes. He just said, if I fix the heart, the whole system will live again." That's not something a technician would normally say. Intrigued, Elena asked Marco, "You speak Italian?" Marco smiled shyly. "Yes, ma'am. I lived in Florence for a few years. My wife was Italian. She taught me everything about patience and life." There was silence. The mood of the room shifted. Even the impatient executives now looked at him differently. After a few moments, the elevator beeped, fixed. Marco stood up, wiped his hands, and said quietly, "It should be fine now. The heart is working again." The investor was impressed. He asked Marco how he learned to repair machines so well. Marco replied, "When you fix things for people you love, you learn faster than any school could teach you." The investor smiled, and Elena couldn't take her eyes off the man. Something about his humility and quiet confidence struck her deeply. Later, after the meeting ended successfully, Elena found Marco downstairs, packing his tools. She thanked him personally and offered him coffee. Over that cup, she learned his story: how he lost his wife, how he was raising his 6-year-old daughter alone, and how every job he did was not just work but a promise to give his daughter a better life. Elena felt something change inside her. She invited him to apply for a technical supervisor position at their company. Marco hesitated. He wasn't used to such offers. But she insisted. Days turned into weeks. Marco joined the company and soon became known for his honesty and brilliant mind. He started teaching younger workers, often saying, "A broken machine is like a broken heart. You don't fix it with force. You fix it with patience." One day, during a company event, his little daughter Sophia came running to him in her tiny blue dress, calling, "Papa." Everyone smiled as she hugged him tightly. The executives, who once looked down on him, now saw a man of strength and wisdom. Elena watched from a distance, realizing she had found not just a good employee but someone whose presence reminded everyone what real value meant. As months passed, the friendship between Elena and Marco deepened. They often talked late after work about life, loss, and hope. Marco's kindness began to heal the quiet loneliness Elena had carried for years. But one evening, a major system failure occurred in the building. The entire electrical network crashed. Panic returned. The elevators stopped again, and the power backup failed. Everyone turned to Marco. He ran through the dark corridors with a flashlight, calm as ever, guiding frightened employees down the stairs. He reached the main control room and realized it wasn't just a simple issue. A power surge threatened to damage the building's system permanently. Without thinking twice, Marco worked non-stop for hours, sweat running down his face. Elena found him at midnight, still fixing cables, his hands trembling. She pleaded with him to rest, but he shook his head and said softly, "If I stop now, the whole building goes dark." By dawn, the lights came back on. Everyone cheered. The company was saved. Elena hugged him tightly, tears in her eyes. From that day, Marco became more than just an employee, he became a symbol of resilience. The story of the single dad who fixed the elevator spread through the city like wildfire. News channels covered it. People admired how a simple man with no fancy degree could teach an entire company about dedication, humility, and love. Months later, the investor who first met Marco offered him a scholarship to study advanced engineering in Italy, the same city where he once lived with his wife. But Marco hesitated. He didn't want to leave his daughter behind. Elena stepped forward and said, "We'll support you. We'll take care of Sofia like family." Tears filled his eyes. For the first time in years, Marco felt he wasn't alone anymore. He accepted the offer, promising to return with more knowledge and a heart still full of gratitude. Years later, he came back, stronger, wiser, and happier. He started his own company that trained underprivileged workers, teaching them how to repair and rebuild, not just machines, but their lives. And in every workshop, a small sign hung on the wall that said, "Fix with patience. Love with courage. Live with purpose." Elena often visited him, and together they built a program for single parents, helping them find work and dignity. What started as a simple elevator repair had turned into a story of transformation. A reminder that greatness often comes disguised in blue overalls, carrying a small toolbox, and a heart full of dreams. Because sometimes, the people who seem ordinary are the ones who lift the world a little higher.